Alright guys, we're going to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. The Loch Ness Monster, okay? We all know him, we all love him, we have ladles, we have everything Nessie, even a children's show.
Jessie and Nessie.
Yay!
What are you curious about?
But is he real, and how do we know it? Today is Saturday, which means it's Conspiracy Saturday, where we expand our mind and try to have a better grasp of reality. First, it is Loch Ness, not Loch Ness. Loch means lake in Scottish Gaelic, and it is still used today for all lakes in Scotland, so basically it's called Lake Ness. Is that clear? Second, it's located right here in Scotland. It is the largest freshwater lake by volume in Great Britain. It's 23 miles long, almost 800 feet deep in areas. And fun fact, if we go a little south on the map, the lake right down here is called Loch Lochy, which really means just Lake Lakey, which is kind of fucking funny. The legend of the sea monster in Loch Ness goes back thousands of years. So, the Picts, which were a group that lived in the region before the Romans got there, they actually carved a sea monster right around Loch Ness, and this was again thousands of years ago. The second event of a sea monster living in Loch Ness was actually recorded by Saint Columba, which was the saint that is, famously brought Christianity to Scotland, but in 565 AD, he actually has a story that there's a man on the shore of Loch Ness, and he was about to be eaten by the sea monster, and he went down and he said, "No! In God's name, you will get away from this man," and the monster went away from the man. So, that's some evidence. I would say if it's likely that the Scottish people of this time had a myth about a lake monster, he could have made this whole story as a, something to relate to the locals about. So I'm going to dismiss this story, but it's fair to say that the Loch Ness Monster has been going on for thousands of years. So we're going to fast forward, and we're going to fast forward to 1933. So this is right when, cars start populating the world, and they made a new road on the north side of the lake. And this couple, they were driving on by, and they saw this monster or creature out in the water. It was a huge creature, and that spread like wildfire. And for the rest of 1933, the Loch Ness Monster was booming. It was a crazy news story. And just things were happening left and right. People were seeing it left and right. There were these footprints that were found on the shore of, they just looked like monsters' footprints. So these people went ahead and made replicas of the footprints. They went ahead and put something into the footprints themselves. So they sent that off to the London Natural History Museum. And this was over Christmas break, so nobody was there. But after Christmas in January, the experts went ahead and analyzed these footprints, and they were shown to be hippo footprints that were hippo feet that were stuffed and then stamped into the ground. And so it was just a hoax. Those footprints were not real. And actually that hoax kind of killed all kind of just information and just the love for Loch Ness. Like, all of that was dead. But one thing that didn't die was this picture from 1934. We all know it. We've all seen it. This is the iconic picture of Loch Ness. This is the Loch Ness Monster right here. We all fucking know it. This is it right here. And this picture was taken again in 1934. So even though everything died off because of the hoax, this still continued. This picture was actually taken by a doctor, which made it seem more credible at the time. So that's why it kind of lived and became something. In 1957, a book was released. It was called More Than a Legend, and this caused new expeditions to come. And so in 1958, the BBC did an expedition, and then Oxford, Cambridge, and Birmingham University, or University of Birmingham, had their own expeditions. All of these came out with nothing. Like, none of these expeditions from these credible places showed anything. But in 1975, some members from MIT and other places used sonar. So they came in there and they used sonar with underwater photography, and they mix the two at the same time. And when this sonar was showing this large creature, this moving entity under the water, they got this photo. And so this is a pretty crappy photo, and this is supposed to be a fin, but it's like, this is real. Moving object underwater. This is a photo. It shows a fin or a flipper. It's not great. Again, it was 1975. But what was important about this photo is it started the whole Nessie is a plesiosaurus. And that's pretty fucking incredible. But plesiosauruses are thought of to like be extinct 65 million years ago. So that's a lot different than 1975. But, maybe a small community got trapped in the lake or moved into the lake and made it its home. So they just kept surviving down in Loch Ness. Moving forward to 1987, 20 boats that were equipped with sonar did a whole blanket sweep of Loch Ness, and they yielded 3 underwater targets that couldn't be explained. So there's that. In 1990, another expedition to scan the lake, not to look for monsters, but just to actually look at the lake itself, found a large creature underwater, and they tracked it for several minutes before they lost it. So that's cool in its own right. So we're seeing these little tiny glimpses. Now, in the 90s, this guy came out with a story from this other guy that came out with this other guy. So basically a story from a story of a story, but it showed that the people that actually made the hippo footprints also said, oh, you didn't like that one? We're going to do it better. So they had a friend that was friends with the doctor that took the photo, this original photo, and the doctor actually didn't take it. He was actually given the photo and said, hey, go ahead and take this photo and give it to the news, and you'll see more credible than us. So the famous photo was a hoax. But good news is in 2022, and now it was believed that plesiosauruses could be in freshwater, but in 2022 they found 12 plesiosauruses together in freshwater, which shows that they could actually live in freshwater, not just saltwater. So, Lake Ness being the biggest freshwater lake in Great Britain shows that they could potentially have lived there. Which is pretty cool. Bad news is, since they've started recording the depth of Lake Ness since the 90s, this year, 2023, is at its lowest point. So it could be good news, because if it completely dried out because of global warming, we could you might be able to see some plesiosaurus bones down there, and then we would know. But yeah, not really good for the environment. So kind of bad news. Now, on good news again, there are new owners to the Loch Ness Center, and they bought it in January. They just spent £1.5 million, money, right, to renovate the center. So that's pretty cool that it opened this weekend. So that's nifty, and that could lead to more expeditions down there, So, in my opinion, right, is Loch Ness Monster, is Nessie real? I'm gonna have to say no. I'm just gonna have to say no. Some people think it's a giant eel. I'm just gonna say, fuck that idea. That's stupid. I don't even want it to be a giant eel. I want it to be a plesiosaurus. But I just don't think it's real. So most scientists say that plesiosaurus went extinct 65 million years ago, and Loch Ness was created 10,000 years ago. So it's not like, hey, maybe they survived in there and made it its home and a small community kept living. It just seems very unlikely that if there was a small community of plesiosauruses that still exist today or existed 100 years ago, that they would have only survived in this tiny little lake that was made 10,000 years ago. So I'm going to say probably not. Unfortunately, as a fan of Nessie my whole life, this research kind of points to that it doesn't exist. Sorry to ruin your day. I hope you have a great one. Spread love, hope, and peace. Or spread love, peace, and hope. Do whatever you want. Point is, have a good day, treat others nicely, and adios.